Well, welcome. We are going to be in Isaiah chapter 29. Isaiah chapter 29, if you want to go ahead and open up to there. Last week, we didn't go into Isaiah. We had somebody else that was teaching. So tying that together, kind of looking at a little bit of a review of chapter 28, and we're going to jump right on over into chapter 29. I think the big thing that we saw is about the idea of the proud crown versus the precious cornerstone. The proud crown, and he goes through there and describes, is basically Israel and the northern kingdom, and then the southern kingdom, Jerusalem, and the idea of the way that they had this pride and this kind of arrogance, and how God was going to show their foolishness in all the alliances and things that they were doing. He describes them as drunken, and just the way that they tried to go against what was truly the one crown, which really is God himself, the Father. And so he brings up this idea of this cornerstone, which we saw how it has an allusion towards showing as Christ being this cornerstone in the future as well. And this allusion as well, kind of this illustration of showing that how that even it applied to them coming back and reestablishing the temple through the foundation rebuilding. So that flows into this idea of the next chapter and looking at woe to Ariel. And when worship is really lip service, this idea, and it's kind of an interesting word, and it's kind of beautiful the way that he is going to use this word Ariel. Just to let you know real quick, we're going to go ahead and read the verses and then come back. I'll bring the verses back up, but not reread them, and then kind of pull out and extract some points that we're going to discuss about it. I think the reason I kind of switched because the flow of it is really awesome if you'll listen to it and kind of the way they connect. And I was afraid that if we just fragmented it, it kind of lose some of the essence of this flow, the beautiful way that he's playing on this word Ariel. Ariel is something that is self-explained, but it's very interesting in the way he's going to use this. So let's go ahead and read. Ariel, Ariel, the city where David encamped. Add year to year, let the feasts run around. Their round. And yet I will distress Ariel, and there shall be moaning and lamentation, and she shall be to me like an Ariel. And I will encamp against you all around, and besiege you with towers, and I will raise up siege works against you, and you will be brought low. From the earth you shall speak, and from the dust your speech will be bowed down. Your voice shall come from the ground like the voice of a ghost, and from the dust your speech shall whisper. But the multitude of your foreign foes shall be like small dust, and the multitude of the ruthless like passing chaff. And in an instant, suddenly, you will be visited by the Lord of hosts with thunder and with an earthquake and great noise, with whirlwind and tempest and the flame of a devouring fire. And the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, all that fight against her and her stronghold and distress her, will be like a dream, a vision of the night, as when a hungry man dreams, and behold, he is eating, and he awakes with his hunger not satisfied. Or as when a thirsty man dreams, and behold, he is drinking, and awakes faint, with his thirst not quenched. So shall the multitude of the nations be that fight against Mount Zion. Astonish yourselves and be astonished. Blind yourselves and be blind. Be drunk, but not with wine. Stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord has poured out upon you a spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes, the prophets, and covered your heads, the seers. And the vision of all this has come to you like the words of a book that is sealed. When men give it to one who can read, saying, read this, he says, I cannot, for it is sealed. And when they give the book to one who cannot read, saying, read this, he says, I cannot read. And the Lord said, because the people draw near me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, while their heart is far from me, and the fear they fear of me is a commandment taught by men. Therefore, behold, I will again do wonderful things with this people, with wonder upon wonder, and wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the discernment of their discerning men shall be hidden. You who hide deep from your Lord, your counsel, whose deeds are in the dark, and who say, who sees us? Who knows us? You turn things upside down. Shall the potter be regarded as the clay, that the thing made should say of its maker, he did not make me? Or the thing that formed say of him who formed it, he has no understanding. Is it not yet a little while until Lebanon shall be turned into the fruitful field, and the fruitful field shall be regarded as a forest? In that day the deaf shall hear the words of a book, and out of their gloom and darkness the eyes of the blind shall see. The meek shall obtain fresh joy in the Lord, and the poor among mankind shall exult in the joy in the Holy One of Israel. For the ruthless shall come to nothing, and the scoffers cease, and all who watch to do evil shall be cut off, who by a word make a man out to be an offender, and lay a snare for him who reproves him in the gate, and with an empty plea turn aside him who is in the right. Therefore, thus says the Lord, who redeemed Abraham concerning the counsel of Jacob. Jacob shall no longer be ashamed, no more shall his face grow pale. For when he sees his children, the work of my hands in his midst, they shall sanctify my name. They shall sanctify the Holy One of Jacob, and will stand in awe of the God of Israel. And those who go astray in spirit will come to understanding, and those who murmur will accept instruction. It is fascinating the way that he goes through and starts out by this use, kind of a poetic way of saying, Ariel, Ariel. This word has it has a dual meaning. And when you look at the Hebrew word Ariel, area is lion. Al is God. So you have the lion of the Lord. So you have him describing this, and we know who it is because it clearly says city of David. So we know that the city of David is what he's talking about, the lion of God. There's also another thing that we see in there is how that he is going to make them as Ariel. Now, the other thing is in Ezekiel, we see where he uses the word Ariel as the hearth to the top where the offering is given on the altar. So there's this idea that in this devastation, all that's going on, yes, they have this, they're kind of ironic. You look at yourself as a lion of God, but there's also a use of that word Ariel as being the top of the hearth of where the sacrifice is given. And so there's this idea that, yeah, you are the lion of the Lord, but at the same way, in this judgment that's coming upon you, you are going to be also on that sacrifice, and it's going to be visited on you. That's a part of this besiegement that's coming. Now, in context, as far as historically, what we see happening is in 701, we know the Assyrians come in and they punish and they take off and destroy the 10 northern tribes, and they're led off into captivity. But Judah doesn't escape the catastrophe that's going to fall upon. They're also going to experience a portion of this as well. And so this chapter, Jerusalem, focuses on the effects that are going to come upon them as well. And even though there's the discipline to the north is going to occur, there's discipline that's going to come upon them. And instead of, again, trying to take that as a learning, they're just going to ignore. They're not going to see what's going on. So that's what this chapter is kind of looking at, is the way that this is going to happen. Here, their pride, their arrogance, and thinking that we are the lion of God, and yet they're going to be the sacrifice of God, Ariel. And so this is going to be something devastated to them, that they're actually going to be a place of burning. That's what the hearth was there. And so that's something that they're going to see. It's going to come up them, and then it's going to, the resultant of this encampment in showing that the way the Assyrians are going to come upon them, and they did. They came, they besieged the city, and brought up siege towers and everything like that. It's going to be totally humiliating. What's going to happen to them? And we see this historically in the record in the Kings and Chronicles as well, where whenever they were besieged, I mean, they were devastated. They were so distraught. They ripped their clothes, and it just looked completely hopeless. There was a massive army that had already penetrated way into their territory, and there was no reason they couldn't go ahead and destroy the city. It was going to be a lot of work. So there was at that time when it's going to happen, Hezekiah is the king. Now, the other thing we kind of do understand that this is probably something that's going to occur within about a year is the way in verse 1 there, it says, add year to year, let the feast run their round. Most of the Hebrew scholars look at that and say that indicates that it is more of something that's going to occur soon, within possibly the year, a cycle of the feast, and then this is going to happen. So that would place it around 701. Now, there's also some deep meaning that this can be something as well as when Babylon comes, because it's almost going to be a deja vu moment, except it won't be the Assyrians, it's going to be the Babylonians that will come, and they will besiege. But this is not the direct application because of what we will see in just a moment about when he talks about their foes, and he says about them. And so those are the key things when we look at 1 through 4 there. We look at 5 through 8, note the sudden reversal. And that's one of the things that you see in this chapter is there's many things that reverse their status, their condition. And that's what we see here is, one, this kind of surrounding is going to have a reversal. They're going to be this sudden invasion that's going to come upon them, the multitude of their foes that surround them, and yet what's going to happen to them? They're going to turn to dust. Now, that did not happen when the Babylonians did it. The Babylonians were successful, and they took them off. The Assyrians were not successful. So that's why, again, most of the Hebrew scholars will say this is really the Assyrian, not the Roman one either, because that's another time when they get besieged and stuff. But when you look at this, the multitude of your foreign foes will be like small dust, and multitude of the ruthless like the passing chaff. And then you see that suddenly you will be visited by the Lord of the hosts with thunder. That's the judgment that then God brought upon the Assyrian army and destroyed them with the angel of the Lord, like 185,000 or something overnight. And they woke up in the morning and they were like, they're gone. And that's why this is so amazing, because it's so detailed. How often does that happen? When does that ever happen? Where an army is in such powerful position and they surround a place that they absolutely are going to take down. And then overnight, they're gone. They're just absolutely gone. And so that is what he's describing here, is that they shall be like small dust. They'll be like passing chaff. I think the ruthlessness, this does describe the Assyrians. They were extremely ruthless, but God is going to visit them like that. Thunder, earthquake, wind, devouring fire. He uses this imagery of the dream. If you've ever had a dream where you were hungry, I don't know, sometimes we do. I mean, I'm always hungry, but you have a dream where you're doing something and you feel like you did it and you wake up and go, no. So he's using something that you can relate to, that you dream like you're eating Thanksgiving and all this, and you wake up and you're hungry. What? That's the way the Assyrians are going to feel. That's the way they're going to feel. They're going to feel like they're sitting there, they're just taking it, Jerusalem down, and they're going to be like satisfying themselves on it, and like a dream, they're going to wake up and it's gone, and it doesn't happen. Isn't that awesome? The pictures, the way he's using this. So he shows how that God is also applying his discipline to nations. Again, that reflects his sovereignty. Sovereignty is he has the right to rule everything. And that he's not just holding, just his people to account. He's holding all nations. Remember, Habakkuk, he's the one that asked for discipline and correction. And when God said it was going to be the Assyrians, he told him, hey, don't worry about it. Because when those Assyrians get cocky and they get out of control, I'm going to bring them down. This is what Isaiah is talking about. This is exactly what God did. So this does show kind of a total power of God. And I like the way he says here, fight against Mount Zion. That's God's house. You think you're going to come, unless God allows it? And this is another kind of ironic thing that through the previous chapters we see where, it's kind of sad where God has to come and fight against his own people when he's always been on their side and fought for them. And now God is having to fight against them. So now 9 and 10 reflects this idea of the spiritual blindness. This idea where, astonish yourselves and be astonished. You ever seen somebody entertain themselves? They don't need help? How do you astonish yourself? I've got a pretty wild imagination and I can entertain myself a lot, but it doesn't mean it's real, you see. Astonish yourself. Go ahead. Be astonished. Because it's blind yourselves and be blind. I'm going to do that. So it's drawing a really amazing picture, isn't it, of the type of person that is spiritually in this condition in Jerusalem. Be drunk with wine, but not be drunk, but not with wine. Stagger, but not with strong drink. So what is it? What is causing somebody that would be in this type of a stupor? It's something God is going to bring upon them. It's something that the type of blindness that's going to happen. Paul talks about this in Thessalonians, about how people who do not love the truth, what's God going to do? Send a strong, deluding lie that they would believe in it. Why? Because they don't love the truth. So when people read the New, I've heard people say, well, God's going to do that to them. Hey, it ain't the first time. It ain't the first time. Romans chapter 1, right? That should scare all of us, even, the faithful a little, to be sure. A little bit of a check and balance, on this. Because in their eyes, obviously, as we see, they don't see it. They're astonished by their wisdom. They're astonished and they're entertained, themselves with the wisdom they have, and the way that they are the Lion of God, and all these great historical pedigree that they show and they believe in. And yet, no. And that's why he shows he's basically going to destroy the total effectiveness of their prophets and the ones who can see. Now, the prophets in this situation are those teaching of God, speaking directly. The ones others, so sometimes we see the overlapping of, like seers, vision, stuff like this. But all of them are basically going to be totally ineffective. But they're going to astonish people with their visions. But they're worthless. And that even happens today, does it not? People proclaim that they're still speaking for God and having visions and stuff like that. And people are astonished by it, aren't they? Astonish yourself. How many times has the world been predicted to be destroyed and all these different prophecies that are going to happen? And then he keeps in this flow really in verses 11 and 12 when he talks about the sealed book. But it's not sealed. That's kind of the irony of it, isn't it? He says like this, he goes, and the vision of all this has become to you like words in a book that is sealed. The vision. So God has said it outright. He has given it to you. But you look at it like it's a locked book. God said, here's the message. And they take that in the form of a book, and it's like, I can't open it. Here, you read it. I can't read. Well, one who can read, so it's interesting. You see how they pass it? They go from one who can read, and then all of a sudden to one who can't read, and nobody can read it. It's like the book is sealed. That is exactly the same today. When people take God's word and they read it, but it's like it's sealed. It's like, who can understand it? Let me help you out. Let me astonish you. What it's saying is that you still haven't been able to open it. You're not opening the truth because you don't really want it. You're not going to, if you don't have the right heart, you'll never be able to open it up and see the truth in it. Because God, it's not like God sent it to him encrypted. what he's really reflecting is their own personal condition and why it has become something that is sealed. It's the hardness of heart, as we say. You know, Bibles are everywhere. We have never lived in a time of the existence of human beings that have had more access around the world to God's Word. And yet, there is such ignorance about it. Right? It's stunning. And I mean, even to like the Hebrew scholars who know the Hebrew culture and all those things that could explain it to you simply. And yet, they don't get it. And they astonish themselves. They amuse themselves by creating what they want. So it's not a problem of lack of information. Again, it's about the condition of the heart. So that's why it leads to lip service. Now, we've heard this. Jesus actually referred to it. I mean, when I read it, I'm sure you're sitting there going, I've heard this. Jesus said this. Jesus was quoting almost directly from it in Matthew 15, 8, and 9. Mark also refers to it in Mark 7, 6, verses 6 and 7 as well, about this idea. So what do you have? You have lips near and a heart that's far. Lips near, but a heart that's far. So those are the externals, the lips. The things that you're doing externally, you know, are something that you draw near with your mouth, your actions. But it's just an honorary thing with your lips. It's lip service. That's kind of where that came from. Oh, they're only giving lip service to it. What does that mean? Superficial. There's no depth to it. When somebody just gives lip service to something, that's really kind of where this comes from, this idea of somebody. But their heart, their true value, their true belief about something is not being revealed. And that's what we see here. And another great thing I thought was really neat is the way it says, their fear of me is a commandment taught by men. Not me. They're not afraid of my commandments. They're afraid of men's. And that's another one we can look at today where people are more fearful of a creed or some other false doctrine than they are of genuinely God's commands. So, you know, the idea again, like in 1 Corinthians 1:19, where he says that he basically has taken the things of the world that are wise and made them foolish, and God took the things that were foolish and he made them wise. This is what he's really talking about, what Paul is referencing to as well. This idea that he is going to take things and just turn them upside down. And if you're so hard of heart, you'll never see it. I mean, one of the most foolish things to the Greek culture was the idea that a god would send their son, a demigod, and allow the humans to kill him. That's just totally, in a philosophical Greek way, ridiculous. There is absolutely no way a Greek god in which they built their lives on would ever allow that to happen. Most foolish thing they'd ever heard, that story. And this is what he's also saying here, is that these things, and so the wisdom of the wise is going to perish, the ability to understand, all of this stuff. And again, it's not because God has not spoke to them and given them an opportunity. It's the idea of their heart again. So outwardly, religiously, inwardly, disconnected. And so that's the same thing that we struggle with today as well. God's not fooled by your correct vocabulary and the things you speak outwardly. He absolutely knows. And that's where it kind of leads to 15 and 16. Because sometimes people think they can hide. My lip service, you don't know I don't really believe it. How do you know it's lip service? I mean, in a human way, if you tell me something, unless like you've already proven to me that all you do is lip service, I wouldn't know. I would have to trust that what you're saying to me is something you truly believe. But with God, he absolutely, every time your lips move, knows the truth. And so this idea that you can hide this. You who keep deep things from the Lord, your counsel, whose deeds are in the dark, who say, who can see us? Who knows us? Really? You're going to say that and really believe that God doesn't see it? Or are you going to then, like he's going to draw, that you don't believe, one, he's going to do anything about it, which really is starting to lead to agnostic beliefs in, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, exist, or somehow he just doesn't really care. And so he brings up, and this is where Paul, you're more probably familiar with Romans 9, 20 and 21, where he talks about the potter. This idea where he talks and says, that somehow that, the potter has the ability to stand up and talk back to the Creator. And in chapter 9 of Romans, in 20 and 21, that's exactly what he's trying to explain to the Israelites, is somehow, that we can we who are the ones that are the creature, can look at the Creator and judge him for what he's doing. And so that is something that is very powerful. Art, like he says here in 16, he didn't make me. Who's that? Atheist. I evolved from soup. I crawled out. I evolved. Now, and it's kind of weird, thinking, well, what Jew would think that? And they had become very, what we call secularized at times, where, they were Jew in name only. And so in this situation, there were many of them that were like that. So that's the idea of who has this ability to really honestly question the Creator. It, again, reflects the sovereignty, the right of God to rule everything. I told you this chapter also, there's these reversals, and that's what he's showing here. In 17 through 20, a reversal, and this idea. And so the image of Lebanon. Now, we don't live during that time. I've never been to Lebanon. I only know historical things, but if you were, again, people who are living in this day and age, they would have viewed Lebanon as something that was very fruitful, very rich, and very proud, arrogant, and deserving the judgment. And they're going to get it. They are. They're not going to escape. Lebanon's en route down south. So they're going to get some of this from the Assyrians as well. But what's amazing about this is that he's showing how that this reversal is going to turn back, and it's going to be more fruitful in the end. And so in the day of the death shall hear the words of the book, and out of the gloom and darkness the eyes of the blind shall see. The meek shall obtain fresh joy from the Lord, and the poor among mankind shall exult in the Holy One of Israel. So he's going to take these reversals, those that were evil, proud, and arrogant, but yet fruitful, are going to be punished and refurbished and repurposed. And that's what's going to happen with Lebanon. And it's interesting because to, the Hebrew, he'd be going, no, you don't want to do that. No, not Lebanon. They're vile. They're not really God's people. So it's kind of a little bit of an allusion towards, the idea that God has people everywhere. He's still, all mankind are his children. So, yes, you may look at them as somebody that's ungodly and very powerful and fruitful, but God is going to take them and make them more fruitful and produce even something more marvelous through them. So this is that type of reversal. 2021, there's going to be an end to all this. Ruthlessness. The idea that is turning around and turning things upside down. Justice, if you look at that. Ruthlessness come to nothing and scoffers cease. And there are actually, the way he describes this, there's people who are watching to see evil occur to capitalize upon it. And they're going to be cut off. You look at the injustice here. Who by the word of a man, who by a word make a man out to be an offender. Well, that's false testimony. It's lying about somebody and just by the word, not the actions, but turning them into a criminal. The idea of somebody setting up a trap in the reproofs in the gate. Now that's the court systems. The gate was the court system. That's where they met. So everything here, and with an empty plea turns aside him who is right. In other words, somebody comes with a charge or some unjust thing that's occurring, And they were able to talk him out of it. Plea deal. Not in the legal sense we see, but basically kind of like, Bob didn't really mean it. He killed someone. It's okay. Whoop. And just, that's not justice. Now, another reversal, he is showing a bigger picture, is about the name of Jacob. And the name of Jacob is shameful at this time of judgment and stuff. And so here he speaks about the one who redeemed Abraham, who had this covenant faithfulness to God and him, God. And so Jacob, who Israel, so that's kind of showing that his people will no longer be ashamed. His children will sanctify God's name instead of shaming his name. And those who went astray in spirit are going to come to an understanding. There's going to be this total reversal coming back. And when they came out back after even this punishment, there's always some, when the Assyrians surrounded, they were humbled and did turn around. There was also some, absolutely, a lot of them came back after the captivity of the Babylonian punishment that they went through. And they turned around and they honored the name of Israel. And we see this also can be something we can see where when Jesus came and what he accomplished, not only did honor come through the children of Israel that became Christians, but also through all people who have come and then honored God's name. So when we talk and we wrap this up, he's comfort, Israel's, he confronts them right up front about their vain worship, their hidden schemes, and that spiritual blindness that they have. And that this idea of Ariel having such a covenant, by the way, that name Ariel was kind of a covenant name as well. So when they heard that of being applied, it was reminding them of this covenant relationship as well. And that God himself is going to turn around and come upon them. And he's going to expose this false religious persona that they're putting out there. And he is going to reverse people's blindness to sight, their deafness to hearing around. And it's going to give this fresh joy to those who are meek, who had trusted the Lord. They're going to have the hope in that as well. So that's 29. So if you're here with us this evening and there's something we can do to assist you in your relationship with God, our Father, we pray that you would take this moment while we sing this invitation song. And if you're comfortable, let us know while we're singing.